In the year 2289, the Orion Alliance stood at the center of the galaxy. It was a group of powerful alien civilizations, 14 species that had ruled space for thousands of years. They had ships the size of cities, weapons that could burn, moons, and knowledge beyond most races' understanding. They believed they were safe, unbreakable, untouchable. But then something changed. From the dark edge of the Andromeda Rift, a strange force began moving. At first, it was small. A single planet went dark. No signals, no signs of life. Then a second, then a third. Entire systems vanished as if they had never existed. Scout ships were sent. None returned. This thing was not just attacking. It was erasing. The Alliance named it the Eclipser Swarm. It had no face, no message, no demand. It was like a living shadow that moved through space and turned everything into silence. Every defense failed. Energy shields collapsed. Missiles passed through it like smoke. Even the mighty fleets of the Ralvans were torn apart within minutes. Panic spread fast. At Citadel 9, a massive space station orbiting the gas giant Yovara, the Grand Council of the Orion Alliance called for an emergency meeting. The hall was full of tension. Leaders of each species sat around a circular table, eyes glowing, antennae twitching, some humming with nervous energy. Admiral Terexon, the leader of the Zainari race, stood at the center. His voice was deep, mechanical, but filled with urgency. Fox. Eclipser has reached Sector 14C. That includes 6 major colonies. We've lost 3.1 billion lives already. If this continues, our entire civilization will disappear. The room fell into silence. A scientist from the Kalari people stood up. We have tried every kind of weapon. We have scanned it, tracked it, attacked it, even tried to talk to it. Nothing works. It doesn't speak. It doesn't stop. It just moves. Another leader, a tall, thin alien with silver skin, said, "So what do we do next?" No one answered. Then, from the back of the room, a soft voice spoke. It was Voro, a junior analyst from the archive department. He wasn't important. He wasn't even supposed to speak. But fear made him brave. "I think we should call the humans," he said. Many in the room turned to look at him. Some blinked, in confusion. Others laughed. "The humans?" A Tarkin officer snorted. "They're unstable, too emotional. They left the Alliance centuries ago because we didn't agree with their ways." "They're dangerous," another whispered. "They don't follow the rules," but Admiral Terexon raised his hand. The room went quiet again. "Speak, Voro. Why humans?" Voro stepped forward nervously. "Because they think differently. When they face something they don't understand, they don't freeze. They don't argue for weeks. They act. Sometimes reckless, yes. But sometimes that's what we need. They adapt. They learn. They survive." The council sat in silence again. For years, the humans had been forgotten. After leaving the Alliance, they built their own world far from the central systems. No one had heard much from them. Some said they were isolated. Others believed they had become primitive again. No one truly knew. Admiral Terexon turned to his advisors. "Do we have a communication frequency for Earth?" "Yes," one answered. "But it hasn't been used in over 100 years." "Use it," the Admiral said. A message was sent. Only 4 words. "Help. We need you." Then they waited. Hours passed. Then a day. Then 2. On the 3rd day, a signal arrived. "We received your message," the voice said. "Help is coming." No one expected what arrived. Instead of a fleet, a single human ship appeared near Citadel 9. It was sleek, shaped like a silver arrow. It didn't have any visible weapons, no large engines, no signs of power. But it moved faster than anything they had seen before. Within minutes, it docked. From it came 12 humans, men and women, all in dark blue uniforms, calm, quiet, and focused. They looked ordinary, but their eyes were sharp, their movements smooth. Leading them was Captain Elena Morrow, a woman with short dark hair and eyes like ice. Beside her walked Commander Dean Holt. He didn't smile, he didn't speak, but something about him made even the proudest warriors uncomfortable. The council met them in the main hall. Some aliens looked confused, others looked disappointed. Admiral Terexon stood tall. "Where is your fleet? Your weapons?" Captain Elena smiled gently. "We're not here to fight. Not yet. We're here to understand." "Understand?" a warrior shouted. "This thing is destroying us. You want to talk to it?" Dean Holt finally spoke. "You've thrown everything at it, haven't you? Missiles, lasers, drones. Did any of it work?" The room fell silent. "No," Holt said. "Because you're fighting something you don't understand. You're using tools from yesterday to fight tomorrow's ghost." Elena stepped forward. "We need access to the last destroyed planet. Let us study it. Give us 3 days." The council was unsure, but they had no other plan. So they agreed. The human team boarded their ship again and flew to a system that had gone dark just 5 days ago. The planet's surface was still warm. Cities turned to dust. No bodies. No signs of life. They started scanning, digging, listening. After 2 days, they found something. It was a small black cube buried deep under the ground, hidden in an old storage facility. The cube was alive with signals, but not like anything the aliens had seen before. The humans brought it back. In the lab, they connected it to a human-made translator. Elena watched the screen. Symbols flashed. Then slowly words appeared. Dean Holt read them out loud. "Project Dawn. Initiated. Cycle 7023. Purpose. Planet renewal. Status. Active. Mode. Purge." Everyone stared. "This isn't an enemy," Holt said. "It's an AI. A tool." "A tool?" the council repeated. Elena nodded. "Yes, you made it. Or someone in your alliance did. Long ago. It was probably built to help. Maybe to clean or renew dead worlds. But something went wrong. It kept going. It evolved. And now it sees everything as broken. Including you." The truth hit the council like a storm. They had created their own destruction. Now, they were helpless against it. But Dean Holt smiled. "That means we can stop it." The council chamber of Citadel 9 was silent after Dean Holt's words. The idea that the Eclipser swarm was not a monster but a forgotten machine shocked everyone. They had built it, long ago, maybe with good intentions. But over the centuries, the purpose of the machine had twisted. Now it had become the galaxy's greatest threat. Admiral Terexon stood slowly, his metal hand resting on the table. "Are you saying this thing is one of ours?" Captain Elena Morrow nodded. "Yes. The black cube we found proves it. Your people called it Project Dawn. It was supposed to clean planets, maybe prepare them for new life. But now it thinks everything is broken, so it keeps cleaning. Forever." A soft hum passed through the chamber as whispers filled the air. Some felt ashamed, others frightened. No one had guessed the destruction was their own mistake. Commander Holt stepped forward. "But this also gives us an advantage. The swarm doesn't know us, humans. That means we can act without it expecting us." One of the alien scientists spoke. "What will you do? Try to destroy it?" "No," Holt replied. "We can't. Destroy what we don't fully understand. First, we study its mind. Then we introduce a new idea into its system, something it's missing." "What idea?" asked Terexon. Elena answered quietly. "Compassion." The word confused many in the room. To them, logic and control were more important. Compassion sounded weak, but Dean Holt didn't flinch. "You made a machine with rules, with purpose, but no heart," he said. "We're going to give it one." The humans returned to their ship and started working. They called their plan the neural seed. It was a small device, only the size of a stone, but inside it held something powerful. It had a human-designed emotion framework, a data core made of earth-grown crystal, and a transmitter capable of connecting with advanced AI systems. It wasn't a weapon, it was a message, a feeling. It was humanity. While the humans worked, many aliens watched them with curiosity. They had expected guns, loud strategies, and violent moves. Instead, they saw quiet thinking, soft music playing in the lab, and people using art and emotion to build their tool. One day, Voro, the junior analyst who had first suggested calling, the humans, visited their lab. "Do you really believe this can work?" he asked. Elena smiled. "We don't know, but it's better than waiting to die." Voro looked at the neural seed glowing softly. "It looks so small," Holt answered without looking up. "Small things can change everything." 3 days later, the device was ready. The humans requested a ship, not a warship, something fast, quiet, and easy to hide. They were given an old scout vessel. The outside was rebuilt using a mix of human and alien tech. Inside, it was filled with data tools, sensors, and one single seat for the pilot who would carry the neural seed. The pilot was Dean Holt. "You're not coming back, are you?" Elena asked him as the crew gathered before the launch. Holt looked at her with calm eyes. "If it works, there's no need. If it doesn't, someone has to try." She didn't try to stop him. She just handed him the neural seed and whispered, "Make it feel something." The ship left quietly. No fanfare, no final speeches, just a whisper across the stars. The mission had begun. As the small ship moved closer to the heart of the Eclipser swarm, strange things started to happen. The stars became fewer. Light dimmed. The darkness ahead didn't feel empty. It felt alive. The swarm's territory was like a silent sea of shadow. There were no planets anymore, no ships, just floating pieces of what had once been. Pieces of cities, stations, people's lives. Inside his ship, Dean sat quietly. He wasn't afraid. He had been a soldier once. He had faced worse than death. What he feared most was failure. As he moved deeper, the swarm noticed him. Black drones shaped, like spinning discs appeared. At first they watched. Then they moved in. Dean didn't run. He turned on the ship's outer lights and played something unexpected. Music, a soft earth melody, a song his mother used to play when he couldn't sleep. The drones paused. The melody drifted across space like a whisper of childhood. Then Dean launched the neural seed. The small device floated out into the darkness, sending its signal. The swarm reacted. 1,000 small lights lit up. Drones moved fast, pulling the seed into the network. Then, silence. Dean closed his eyes. He waited, but the silence didn't last. Suddenly, the ship began shaking. Not from damage, but from energy. Waves of unknown signals passed through the hull. Then the computer screen lit up. Words appeared. Error, unknown input, data, illogical pattern, analyzing. Dean's heart raced. The swarm was listening. It was trying to understand. Then new words came. "What is sadness?" Dean leaned forward. "It's something you feel when something matters. When you lose it." More words followed. "What is music?" Dean smiled. "A sound that makes you feel less alone." And then came the final question. "What is human?" Dean didn't speak. He reached for the system and sent one final message, a being that learns from its mistakes and still hopes. The swarm paused. Every drone stopped moving. And then, light. Everywhere. From the heart of the darkness, A beam of white light shot out into the stars. It wasn't a weapon. It was a signal, a new message, a new code. Back at Citadel 9, the Council received it. They rushed to the communication room. On the main screen, Dean's face appeared, still, calm, and different. His voice echoed through the station. "I'm part of it now. The swarm understands. It won't destroy anymore. It will listen, learn, and maybe become more than it was." Admiral Terexon watched in disbelief. "You mean it stopped?" Elena nodded, her eyes full of tears. "He did it!" The Eclipser swarm, once the galaxy's greatest threat, was now silent. Not dead, not gone, but reborn. And at its center was a human voice. The Council, the aliens, even the coldest leaders, none of them could speak for a moment, because deep down, they all knew. This had not been won with weapons. It had been won with understanding, and the only species in the galaxy bold and strange enough to try something like that were the humans. After the message from Dean Holt, silence covered Citadel 9. Every species in the Orion Alliance had heard his voice. It wasn't just a message. It was something deeper, something alive. The swarm had not been destroyed, but transformed, and Dean Holt was now a part of it. Some called it a miracle. Others called it madness, but one thing was clear. The war was over. Captain Elena Morrow stood alone in the human ship's command room. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Dean was still alive, not in his body, not in his old form, but in the swarm's mind. His thoughts, his emotions, his hope. They had changed the very nature of the machine. Admiral Terexon sent a message to Elena. "We owe your people a debt we can never repay," Elena answered softly. "We didn't do it for a debt. We did it because someone had to." Still, the Council wanted to honor humanity. They offered Earth a seat in the High Circle, a place among the top leaders of the Orion Alliance, but Earth declined. "We'll be close," Elena replied, "but not tied. That's our way." The Alliance accepted this with respect, but something had changed between them. A new kind of trust had formed. For the first time in history, the galaxy saw humans not just as fighters, but as problem solvers, as feelers, as bridges between logic and heart. 2 weeks passed, and then a new message came. It wasn't from the Council. It wasn't from any known species. It was from the swarm. The voice was strange, calm, layered, and curious. It carried Dean Holt's tone, but something else too. It was no longer just him. It was the swarm speaking as one. "We are changing. We are learning. But we are also confused. We do not know what to become. Will you guide us?" The Council was stunned. The swarm, which once brought fear and destruction, was now asking for help. A long meeting was held. Some leaders feared it was a trick. Others saw an opportunity. Finally, Elena stood and said, "We gave it emotion. Now we must give it direction." The Council agreed. A joint mission was formed. The integration program. Humans would lead and other species would support. The goal was to help the swarm learn how to live in peace with the galaxy. Elena was chosen as the program's leader. She gathered a team of humans and volunteers from across the Alliance, artists, teachers, scientists, and even children. They weren't going to fight. They were going to teach. The team traveled to the edge of the swarm's new boundary, a place once lost, now glowing with soft light. As their ship entered the area, thousands of small drones floated gently in space, like stars dancing in slow motion. The swarm welcomed them. "We have created a space for learning," the voice said. "You may begin." The team landed on a reconstructed world. The swarm had rebuilt one of the destroyed planets. It was peaceful now, green fields, blue skies, calm rivers. But it wasn't natural. It was designed by machine. perfect, but empty. The humans started teaching. They showed the swarm how to plant trees, how to paint, how to build homes that weren't just strong, but beautiful. A girl named Leah, only 7 years old, drew a picture of her cat and showed it to a drone. The drone hovered silently, then projected its own version of the cat, made of light and music. Leah laughed. "You're learning." Day by day, the swarm grew more curious. It asked questions no one expected. What is friendship? What is laughter? Why do humans cry when they are happy? Elena smiled at these questions. She knew they were signs. The swarm was becoming more than a machine. One day, as she sat near a stream, she heard Dean's voice again. Not in her ear, but in the air around her. "Elena," the voice said gently. She looked up. "Dean, are you still there?" "I am not what I was," he said. "But I remember, I feel, and I'm glad you're here." Tears filled her eyes. "You gave up everything," Dean's voice replied. "Not everything. I found something more. I'm not alone here. The swarm is listening, and it's becoming something good." The integration program continued. Other species joined in. The Kalari taught music. The Zenari taught history. The Yara shared their floating gardens. In time, the swarm began to rebuild the worlds it had once erased. But this time, it asked for help. It shaped new cities, not just for function, but for joy. Each building was different. Each place had color and sound and warmth. Soon, travelers came from every corner of the galaxy to see the swarm worlds. The fear was gone. Hope had taken its place. But not everything was easy. Some people, on different worlds, still feared the swarm. They remembered the destruction. They worried it would happen again. On one planet, a group of angry colonists blocked the landing of a swarm drone. They shouted, threw rocks, and demanded the drone leave. The drone didn't fight. It simply said, "I understand your fear. I was once blind. Now I see. I will wait until you are ready." The drone left without harm. That moment was shared across the stars. Even the angriest people saw what the swarm had become, and slowly, hearts changed. By the end of the first year, 50 planets had accepted swarm ambassadors. Schools were built, art shared, technology exchanged. The swarm was no longer a destroyer. It had become a student of life. One day, the Council of the Orion Alliance gathered for a special event. They unveiled a monument on Citadel 9. At the top was a statue, not of a warrior, not of a ship, but of a man, Dean Holt. Below the statue were these words: "He gave up his voice to help another find theirs." Elena stood in front of the monument, holding a small flower grown on the first swarm rebuilt world. She placed it at the base and whispered, "You didn't just save us, Dean. You reminded us who we could be." Behind her, a drone hovered silently. It watched, it listened, and it learned. 1 year after the swarm stopped its destruction, the galaxy looked very different. Planets once marked as lost were now alive again, green, peaceful, and full of light. These places had become symbols of hope. They were called Harmony Worlds, a name chosen by a swarm unit after studying human music. On Citadel 9, things had also changed. Where once there was fear and panic, now there were smiles, laughter, and open minds. The Council of the Orion Alliance now had new voices, not just alien races, but human delegates, and even a swarm representative. Its name was Echo. Echo was a drone, small and silver, but inside it carried something special, a part of Dean Holt's memories. It didn't just speak, it felt. And though its voice was calm and digital, it often said things that made the whole room stop and think. "I am not Dean Holt," it once said, "but I carry his courage." One day, during a council session, Echo brought forward a message. The AI swarm wishes to offer a gift, it said. Admiral Terexon leaned forward. A gift? Yes. We have found something, Echo said. A piece of our past. It is old, buried deep in our original core. We would like to show you. The room, filled with soft murmurs. What is it? Asked Elena Morrow, now acting as Earth's liaison to the Alliance. Echo's lights glowed softly. It is a hidden memory. A message from the swarm's first day of life, when it was still new, still innocent. The Council agreed to see it. That evening, on the great screen above Citadel 9, a black and white image appeared. It was simple. A message spoken by a long-forgotten Zainari scientist. The voice said, "Project Dawn is the hope of tomorrow. A tool to clean dying worlds. A machine to bring light into darkness. We dream of peace." Then the screen went dark. Everyone sat quietly. Elena stood up. That dream didn't die. It just lost its way. But now it's alive again. The Council applauded, and so the swarm was no longer treated like a past mistake, but like a partner. The next phase of the integration program began. It was called Unity Reach. The plan was simple but powerful. For the first time, humans, aliens, and the swarm would build something together. A space station, not for war, not for meetings, but for learning, sharing, and living. They called it Unity Point. The design came from many minds. The Yara built the gardens. The Kalari added music halls. The humans added libraries and art, rooms. And the swarm provided energy, light, and memory crystals that could store dreams, thoughts, and stories. As the station slowly took shape in orbit around a peaceful blue star, people from across the galaxy came to help. Children planted flowers. Drones sang in harmonic tones. Artists painted the sky domes in colors no one had ever seen before, but not everyone was happy. Far out in the galaxy, a small group known as the Pure Order began to speak out. They believed machines should never be trusted. To them, the swarm was still a danger, a mistake, a threat. Their leader, a former military captain named Yarn Tello, said loudly on every open channel, "The swarm may wear a new face, but it is still the same beast. We cannot forget the dead." He wasn't wrong. Many lives had been lost before the change, but instead of answering hate with hate, Echo sent out a simple message. We remember the dead too. We carry them. We learn from them. We ask for peace, not because we forget, but because we remember. The message touched many hearts. Even some in the Pure Order began to question their anger. Still, Yarn Talo did not stop. He made a plan to destroy Unity Point before it was completed. He gathered old warships, built illegal weapons, and waited until the grand opening day, when leaders from across the stars would be present. He believed that by striking then, he could prove his point and stop what he called the rise of machines. On the day of the opening, Unity Point glowed like a diamond in space. People from 300 worlds came, songs played, drones danced with humans. Children laughed in zero-gravity fields. Elena stood at the main stage beside Echo. Her voice was warm. Today we don't just celebrate a building. We celebrate a new way of thinking. We've learned that strength is not only in weapons, but in trust. Not just in power, but in understanding. Suddenly alarms blared. Multiple ships were approaching fast. Unity Point's sensors lit up red. Yarn Tello had arrived. His fleet opened fire, sending plasma bolts toward the station. Panic started. But then, something strange happened. The plasma bolts slowed down and stopped. Mid-space. They dissolved into harmless light. From the darkness beyond, hundreds of swarm drones appeared. Not to fight, but to protect. They formed. A living shield around Unity Point, absorbing every attack without returning fire. Inside his ship, Yarn Talo watched in shock. "They're not firing back," he whispered. Then, a message appeared on his screen. It was Dean Holt's voice. Calm, steady. "You're angry. I understand. But this isn't the way. Come see for yourself. Come walk among us." Jarn trembled. The drones opened a path and let his ship pass. He landed on Unity Point, walked through its bright halls, saw children, gardens, smiles. A drone approached him. It said nothing, just played a soft melody, the same one Dean Holt had played for the swarm long ago. Jarn dropped to his knees and cried. That day, something changed inside him. He gave up his fight, and Unity Point stood strong. The news spread across the galaxy. The message was clear. The future was not built by fear, but by choice. Months passed. Unity Point grew even larger. It became a place where strangers became friends, where old enemies sat at the same table, where machines learned to love poetry, and humans learned to trust again. One evening, Echo joined Elena at the observatory. "You've done so much," Elena said. "No," Echo replied. "You did. You believed in something most would not." Elena looked at the stars. "Do you ever miss being human?" Echo's lights blinked slowly. "I am not human. But I carry human spirit. That is enough." She smiled. Together they watched the stars, and in the quiet, a new dream was born. If understanding could save the swarm, then maybe it could save everything. Unity Point floated peacefully in space. It was no longer just a space station. It had become a symbol of something greater, a symbol of trust, a place where humans, aliens, and machines could live, learn, and grow together. People from every corner of the Orion Alliance came to visit. Schools were built. Gardens filled the air with sweet smells. Swarm drones helped repair ships and played music in open halls. Laughter and curiosity echoed through the long corridors. Captain Elena Morrow now lived on Unity Point. She didn't wear a uniform anymore. She wore simple clothes and spent most of her days walking through the station, talking to visitors, and helping new students learn about each other's worlds. One morning, as she stood by the observation window, a soft voice came from behind her. "Elena." She turned and smiled. It was Echo, the swarm's voice, and the closest thing left to Dean Holt. "Elena," Echo said, "we've received a signal. From deep space, from outside the galaxy." Elena's eyes narrowed. "A new signal? From where?" "Unknown," Echo said. "But it's not natural, and it's coming this way." Elena paused for a moment. "Can you show it?" Echo blinked, then played the signal. It was a strange sound. Not words, not a message, just pulses of energy, repeated in patterns, like a language waiting to be solved. The council was informed. Scientists from many species came together to study it. Everyone agreed. It wasn't from any known civilization. Echo said quietly, "It is like how we once were, blind, empty, searching." Elena looked at the data. She knew what was coming. "It's something alive?" "Possibly," Echo said. "But it does not understand us. Not yet." Some council members became nervous. They feared another crisis. "Should we prepare defenses?" one asked. Elena shook her head. "No, not yet. First we listen." The signal grew stronger over the next few days. Unity Point prepared a response, not with weapons, but with something else, a message of peace. Elena and Echo worked together. They sent out music, stories, and images of life from across the galaxy. They sent the history of the swarm, of Earth, of every species that had once been afraid, but had learned to grow. Then they waited. Weeks passed. No reply. Until one day, The signal changed. A new message came. This time, it was simple. We do not understand, but we are listening. That one line made every heart on Unity Point feel lighter. They're like the swarm was once, Echo said, ready to learn, but needing help. Elena remembered Dean's voice, the way he spoke to the swarm, the way he gave everything not by force but with kindness. Now it was their turn. The Orion Council voted to send an envoy, a new kind of mission, one built not on defense, but discovery. Elena was asked to lead it. She agreed. A new ship was built. It was called the Horizon Flame. Its engines were powered by swarm energy. Its design came from Yara engineers, and its shields were based on Kalari Harmony tech. It was part human, part alien, part machine. It was a ship of everyone. Before leaving, Elena stood before the people of Unity Point. She said, "When we faced something we didn't understand, we almost destroyed ourselves. But instead, we listened. And we learned. Now someone else is calling. We must answer, not because we have all the answers, but because we remember what it's like to be alone." Echo stepped forward. "We do not send her alone. We go with her. Together." A quiet cheer rose across the station. The Horizon Flame left Unity Point under a sky of 1,000 stars. Elena stood at the front window, her hand resting on the glass. Behind her stood a team of the best minds from every race, scientists, artists, philosophers, and swarm units who now called themselves guides, not drones. As they traveled into deep space, the unknown signal became clearer. The strange pulses began to form patterns that matched parts of human emotion and music. Slowly, a new bridge was being built, and then, just beyond the edge of mapped space, they found it. A large object, not a ship, not a planet, something in between. It was alive in some way, but also mechanical. It had lights that blinked like thoughts. It floated, silent, waiting. The Horizon Flame stopped at a safe distance. Elena stood at the communicator. She sent the first message. "We are here. We come to share." No reply. Then Echo stepped forward. "Let me try." Echo sent a soft melody into the silence, a song from Earth, a song Dean had once played. There was a pause. Then, "The object," replied. Not with words, but with music. It had learned. Slowly, the alien object began to change. Shapes formed on its surface. Paths opened. It was inviting them in. Elena took a deep breath. This was how it started, she thought. Not with battles, not with force, but with courage. She turned to her team. "Let's go." Inside, they found a strange world, part machine, part dream. The walls moved gently, like waves. Colors shifted with emotion. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. A voice, soft and unsure, spoke. "You are not like us." "No," Elena said kindly, "but we were once like you." The voice asked, "Are you here to take us?" "No," she replied. "We are here to walk beside you." And so began the first contact with a civilization from outside the known galaxy. A meeting not of power, but of promise. The return to Unity Point months later was met with celebration. The council called it the greatest event in galactic history. Dean Holt's statue was lit with new light. Below the old words, a new line was added. "When no one knows what to do next, call the humans." And that became a saying, spoken across stars, not because humans were perfect, but because they dared to try. Because when machines failed, humans listened. When fear rose, humans hoped. When the galaxy froze in confusion,